Welcome back to Try and Tested. I'm Elaine, and in today's episode, I'm going to show you how you can leverage on the Power App's elements and properties to ensure your Canvas app supports keyboard navigation for users who are unable to use the touchscreen. So let's get started. So here I have an app that I've already pre-built. So to make this app keyboard accessible, there's three things that I need to take care of. The first thing is I need to make sure that all interactive elements on this screen is keyboard accessible. So what I mean by interactive elements are basically fields or components on the screen that you need the user to enter or to navigate to. For example, is the text input over here, because you need the user to navigate to enter the information there. So you have to go to properties and go down to TabIndex and make sure that the TabIndex is more than -1. So here I have the TabIndex is 0. And if you have things like images on the form that you do not need the user to do anything, then you don't need to navigate to it. Then if you come to the text index, just make sure that is -1. So the second thing you need to do is to make sure that the navigation flow of your text, of your interactive elements are in a logical order and it match the language that you're working on. So for example, for English, the recommended navigation flow will be top to bottom, left to right. And then of course you have other languages like Arabic and Chinese, which goes from right to left. So there's two ways to do this. One way is to rename your tab index in a sequential order. So for example, I have here, if I want this to go 1, 2, 3, what I'm going to do is I go to name, I go to tab index and put 1. Remember, if you do it in sequential order, you always have to start with 1. If you start in 0, it doesn't work. So now the next one is I have to go down to tab index. And I'm going to set it to 2. And then the next one over here, I'm going to set it to 3. So if I use my keyboard and I do a tab, you can see it goes 1, 2, 3. So just for the fun of it, I'll just show you what happens if I set this to 2 and I set this to 3, then it would go right, left, bottom. So that's one way to do it. The second way to do it is to put them into containers. So I have another screen here which I already pre-created. So when you add the elements to a container, by default, it will go through all the elements in one container before it goes to the element on the next container. So for example here, what I've done here is all my tab index is set to 0. So that is the default. So 0. This is 0, and so forth. So now if I run this, and I use my keyboard, you see how it goes from one container to the other? But I can also put it in sequential order. So I could go 1, 2, and then 3. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this tab index to 1, 2, and then 3. So the good thing about using container is you're able to group your elements together to make sure that the user always navigate to the element within the same group before they go to the next. So that's very good, like if you want to sectionize your form, right? So here's 3. Now if you do a tab, see how it goes, and then it goes here by default. Now lastly, make sure that all the interactive elements or the input elements have a visible border around them so that the new user knows where they are on the screen. So for example over here, if you come to this tag input here, remember how when I tap over it, you can see that there's a color and the border gets a bit darker in color. So that to the user, they would know that they're actually on this input element. If you don't have that, the user wouldn't know where they are on the screen. So there's 3 properties that you could set here. First of all is the focus border color, focus border thickness, and also the border style. So first, let's go to the border style. So here you can see the border style is solid. You can do solid, you can also do dash. It doesn't matter as long as the user know that there is a element over here that they need to input a text in or need to interact with. And then we go down to the, let me click on here, and then we go down to the border color. So at the moment, this is dark blue. Just make sure that it has a color and it's not invisible. And next thing over here is the focus border color. At the moment, it's using border color. I don't want it to use border color. I want to set it as a different color. So I'll put it as probably black. And lastly, very importantly as well, is to make sure that the focus border thickness is more than 0. Because obviously if it's 0, you don't see any border. So now let's test it out. So if I click on it, you see how the border turns black. So the user knows that there is an element, they are on this element on the screen. So another thing you see here for this text input is how when you hover, there's a different color. So also make sure that the border color is high contrast with your background. You could use tools like Chrome Color Checker or any online tools to make sure that your border color and the background is according to the accessibility standard. I'll talk more about accessibility standard in the next video. So that's the 3 simple steps on how you can make your app keyboard accessible. Here is a summary of what we talked about today. So on the left hand side are 4 power-ups properties that you could use to make it keyboard friendly. And on the right hand side is what is the usage of these properties. So what we talk about today is TabIndex, where it makes the interactive element keyboard friendly and ensure that the flow is in logical order. And we also spoke about focus border thickness, and focus border style, where you use to make sure that there's a visible border and outline around the elements so that the users know where they are on the screen. So to learn more about keyboard accessibility in Power Apps, you can go to the link that I've put on this screen. I also will add it to the description below. So thank you for watching. If you have other tips to make Power Apps keyboard friendly, please leave them in the comments below. If you like my content, please give a thumbs up. And if you want to watch more Power Apps content, please hit subscribe. Bye!